So what exactly does Gloria do all day?
She doesn't work, Gerald.
Ryan did not look up from his phone when he said it. He just laughed. That short, cold laugh Gloria had heard 100 times. The one he saved for things he considered beneath serious discussion. She just manages. He let the words sit there like something he had scraped off his shoe. Give anyone enough free time and a vacuum cleaner, and they could do what Gloria does. 12 people sat at that table. 12 people who had just eaten the food Gloria planned, in the home she had spent 3 weeks organizing, at a gathering she had built from nothing while Ryan watched football upstairs. Diane, Ryan's older sister, smirked into her wine glass. She did not correct him, or feel uncomfortable in her seat. She simply smiled the satisfied smile of a woman who had been waiting for someone else to say what she had always been thinking. Gloria sat in her fitted ivory satin blouse and tailored black trousers. She did not move, or raise her voice. She didn't reach across that beautifully set table and overturn a single thing, though the thought arrived, sharp and clear, and she let it pass. She simply looked at her husband the way a records auditor looks at a spreadsheet that has just confirmed 3 months of suspicion. Cold, precise, final. Then she spoke. Actually, Gloria said at her normal volume, to no one in particular and everyone at once, I do considerably more than manage. The table went silent. Ryan smiled the recovering smile, the one designed to signal that nothing important had just happened. Gloria did not smile back, because Ryan had just made the most expensive mistake of his life. Not because he shamed her in front of the people in that gathering, but because he did it the same week she found the hotel receipt folded inside the pocket of his gray jacket. And she had already stopped paying the bills. It was 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday evening in late November. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet in the way that houses get quiet when the person holding everything together finally stops moving. Gloria stood in the bedroom holding a piece of paper. A hotel receipt, dated September 19th, charged to a card whose last 4 digits she knew by heart. Ryan's personal account, the one whose statements went to his office address because, early in their marriage, he had said it was easier to file them there. Work-related spending, he had said. She had not thought about that arrangement again. Until now. She read the receipt twice, before setting it on the bed, and sat beside it. The refrigerator hummed downstairs. Somewhere outside, a car moved slowly past. The bedroom was very still and quiet. Gloria did not cry. What moved through her in that moment was not grief, not rage. It was recognition, the slow realization that this had been there for a long time, and she had finally seen it clearly. September 19th was a Thursday, the night Ryan told her he had a work conference and would be home late. She remembered that night. The living room had been washed in the soft blue glow of a reality show she barely followed. One episode rolled into another while she sat curled beneath a blanket, her phone untouched beside her, eyes drifting again and again to the clock in the corner of the screen. 10 o'clock. Then 11. Then, at 11:47, she heard the front door open downstairs, followed by the familiar metallic click of his keys on the hall table. She had gone to bed and regulated her breathing, slow, even, deliberate, so that when he came upstairs, he would find her apparently asleep and would not have to account for a single hour of his evening. She had been pretending to be asleep in her own bed. She had been doing it for months. Gloria picked up the receipt. She carried it to the small orange notebook she kept in the inner pocket of her work bag. The notebook where she had been tracking, in neat, careful handwriting, every missed school pickup, every canceled family dinner, every thin explanation delivered with the kind of relaxed confidence that only came from never having to answer for anything. She added the receipt to the others. She wrote one line beneath it. November 26th. Hotel receipt. His card. September 19th. The night he said conference. This is now documented. I am done explaining this away. She closed the notebook. She picked up her phone. She made 2 calls. The first was to a family lawyer whose name a colleague had mentioned 6 months earlier in a conversation about somebody else's divorce. Gloria had saved the contact without knowing whether she would ever actually use it. Now she did. The second call was to the mortgage provider. By the time Ryan laughed at Gerald's dinner table 3 weeks later, the process was already in motion. He had absolutely no idea. Gloria was 37 years old, and she was an HR coordinator at a mid-sized logistics company. The kind of professional who knew, better than most people, that every system has a weak spot. For 8 months, she had been the unexamined system holding Ryan's entire life together. She managed the mortgage on the home they owned jointly. She handled the school fees for Dora, who was 9, and Noah, who was 7, paid from the joint account where both their salaries landed each month. She also maintained a personal savings account in her own name, opened before the marriage and added to quietly every month. Ryan's personal credit card statements went to his office. He had arranged this himself, early in the marriage, for reasons Gloria had accepted without examination. That was the first system she had failed to audit. The second system she had failed to audit was Ryan himself. Not because she was careless, because she was afraid. Gloria had watched her own parents' marriage collapse when she was 9 years old. She had watched everything familiar become unfamiliar in the space of one school term. She had made a decision, standing in the wreckage of that particular childhood, that she would never let her children feel what she had felt. That decision had cost her more than she had ever calculated. It had cost her 8 months of absorbed silence. 8 months of carrying chairs with a sore arm and ironing shirts that were not hers to iron and practicing smiles in hallway mirrors before her own family arrived at her own door. It had cost her the truth she could already see but refused to name. Not anymore. The pattern had started in February. Small, the way the most damaging things always start small. Ryan had agreed to handle the afternoon school pickup 3 days a week. Dora and Noah's school was 12 minutes from their house. His office was 20 minutes in the opposite direction. The arrangement seemed reasonable. He forgot the first time. Traffic, he said. He forgot the second time. A meeting ran over. By April, Gloria had quietly accepted, without ever saying it aloud, that she would be the one going. She started leaving work early. She managed it by arriving before anyone else in the mornings, eating lunch at her desk, keeping her output consistent and her absence unnoticed. She did not tell Ryan she was adjusting her schedule. She did not want the conversation, the version where he apologized and she reassured him and nothing changed except that she had now absorbed one more thing. She had learned slowly and without a clear moment of deciding that absorbing a problem was quieter than explaining why it was one. The dinner exit started in June. Ryan's phone would ring mid-meal, always mid-meal, and he would glance at the screen, push back his chair, and walk out to the hallway. The food cooled. The children ate. Gloria kept the conversation moving so that nobody sat in silence at their own table. Work, he would say when he returned. She stopped asking what kind. She was awake the Thursday in July when he came home at 11:45. She heard the front door. She heard his keys on the hall table, that small metallic click on the glass surface. She lay in the dark and breathed slowly and evenly, and she did not say a word when he came into the bedroom. She lay in the dark thinking, I am performing sleep in my own bed so my husband does not have to explain his evening. She kept things calm at every family gathering, laughing at the right moments, filling every silence before it could settle into something uncomfortable, agreeing with the inflated versions of himself that Ryan told at other people's dinner tables. She held her patience when Diane leaned against the kitchen counter at family events and delivered her careful little observations. Ryan has always needed a lot of room, Gloria. It is simply his nature. Said without looking at her. Said the way you state a weather forecast. Inevitable, factual, designed to be absorbed rather than questioned. Gloria had absorbed it. She had absorbed all of it. And she had smiled and served and carried and covered and performed happiness so consistently and so completely that she had almost started to believe it. Almost. The school open day was in September. Noah's class had organized an afternoon for parents to come in, see the children's work on the walls, and meet the teacher. Gloria had told Ryan about it 3 weeks before. She had sent a reminder text 7 days before. She had mentioned it over breakfast on the morning of the event. He confirmed he would be there at 2 o'clock. She arrived at 10 minutes to 2. She placed her bag on the chair beside her to save it. Across the room, Noah stood beside the display board, pointing at the painting he had made of their house. For windows, a yellow sun in the corner. The way every 5-year-old draws a sun when the world still looks exactly as they imagine it should. At 2:15, her phone vibrated. Something came up. Can't make it. Sorry. Gloria looked at the message. She typed. Noah is standing next to his painting looking at the door. She read it back. She deleted it. She typed, okay. She sent that. She put the phone in her bag. She stood up. She walked across the room and crouched down next to her son. Show me the house, she said, her voice full and steady. Tell me about every single window. He told her about every one. She listened to all of it. In the car on the way home, Noah fell asleep in his seat. Gloria stopped at a red light. The city moved quietly around her. The street lights were just beginning to come on. She gripped the steering wheel with both hands. She gave herself 60 seconds. She let herself feel the full weight of it. Her son pointing at a door that did not open, the empty chair with her bag on it, the okay she had sent because anything else would have made her say what she was not yet ready to say. The light changed. She drove home. That night, after the children were in bed, she found the small orange notebook in her bedside drawer. She opened it to a clean page. She wrote the first entry. September 11th. Noah's open day. Told Ryan 3 weeks ago. Reminder sent. Mentioned at breakfast. He confirmed. He did not come. She closed it. She put it in her work bag. From that point, the list grew. Every missed pickup. Every abandoned dinner. Every Thursday. Every thin excuse delivered with the comfortable confidence of a man who had never once been asked to prove himself at home. Gloria wrote them all down. She was building a paper trail without fully knowing why yet. The hotel receipt answered that question. She called Aunt Ruth the Sunday after she found the receipt. Ryan was at the gym. The house smelled faintly of the lemon polish Gloria had used that morning. The same polish she had used every Saturday for 4 years, on the same wooden surfaces, in the same order. Ruth answered on the second ring. I need to talk to you, Gloria said. I know, Ruth said. Come for lunch. Gloria drove to Ruth's house with the orange notebook in her bag. She sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Ruth had fed her toast and given her silence when she was a child and the world felt uncertain, and she opened the notebook. She read Ruth every entry. Not with drama. Not with tears. With the same steady voice she used at work when she needed people to listen and take notes. Dates. Patterns. Missed commitments. Late returns. The hotel receipt. The 2 phone calls she had already made. Ruth listened without interrupting once. When Gloria finished, Ruth poured more tea. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of rain beginning against the window. How long? Ruth asked. 8 months that I counted, Gloria said. Longer than that in truth. Ruth set down the teapot. She put both elbows on the table. You remind me, she said, of someone so afraid of a storm that they build a shelter with no walls and call it a home, because at least it has a roof. But a roof with no walls is not a home, Gloria. You have been standing in the rain and calling it shelter. Gloria looked at her tea. My children, she said. Yes, Ruth said. But tell me this. What are your children watching right now? The kitchen held that question. Gloria looked at the orange notebook on the table between them. I am not going to fall apart, she said. Quietly. To herself as much as to Ruth. No, Ruth said. You are not. She looked at her niece steadily. You are going to do something much more effective. You're going to get very organized. There is something this community understands that rarely gets said out loud. The loneliest place in the world is not an empty room. It is standing in a full house, a house you built, a table you set, a life you held together with both hands, and watching someone describe your sacrifice as free time. If Gloria's story is sitting somewhere in your chest right now, leave a comment below. Just say, I know. You do not need to say anything else. And if you are not yet part of her drama tales, subscribe now. Because this story is not close to finished. Gloria was already organized. She had been to the lawyer's office during her lunch break on a Wednesday, 4th floor, clean desk, the kind of room where decisions become paperwork and paperwork becomes protection. She had laid it out clearly. The joint account for household expenses. The mortgage in both names. Her personal savings account, opened before the marriage, contributed to every month. The orange notebook. The hotel receipt. The mortgage shortfall she had been covering from her personal savings for 6 months. A shortfall that existed because Ryan's business, described at every social gathering as booming, was running on reputation and borrowed time. The lawyer had asked her clear questions. Gloria had given clear answers. That savings account, the lawyer said, making a note, is a good place to start. Gloria thanked her. She paid the consultation fee. She walked out into the cold November air and stood on the pavement for 30 seconds. Then she went back to work. She was at her desk before the hour ended. 3 emails answered. 2 leave requests approved. A compliance file updated. Nobody in her office knew where she had been. Gloria understood something in that moment with complete clarity. She was extremely capable of managing things without anyone noticing. She had simply been applying that capability to the wrong things for a very long time. That stopped now. She redirected contributions. She notified the mortgage provider of the change in payment arrangement. She stopped covering the shortfall. She kept going to work. She kept taking the children to school. She kept the surface of their shared life looking exactly as it always had. Underneath that surface, she was closing doors one by one. Ryan noticed nothing. He was busy being charming at the gatherings he valued, refilling Gerald's glass at dinner parties, telling stories that made rooms laugh, performing the version of himself that impressed an audience. He had simply never examined the fact that Gloria had been writing his material. And so they arrived at Diane's Christmas dinner table. Gloria dressed the children carefully that morning. Dora in green, Noah in navy. She sat at the table, and she participated, and she watched Ryan perform for 12 people who had no reason to look beneath the surface. He was good at it. He had always been good at it. Gerald raised his glass with genuine warmth and said that Ryan was a very fortunate man. Ryan looked up from his phone. He laughed. She just manages, he said. And Diane smirked into her wine glass. And 12 people went quiet. And Gloria set down the serving spoon and looked at her husband with the eyes of a woman who had been keeping records for 3 months and had already set the consequences in motion. Actually, she said, I do considerably more than manage. 1 sentence. Normal volume. No performance. Ryan smiled the recovering smile and said he was not being literal. I know what you were being, Gloria said. I just wanted to say it accurately. For the record. Diane's smirk dissolved. Gerald found something urgent to say about the dessert. And across the table, Aunt Ruth lifted her glass toward Gloria. Just slightly, just enough. Not a toast. A recognition. I see you. You are still here. Gloria looked back at her plate. She picked up her fork. She finished her meal. Under the table, her hand rested on her work bag. On the orange notebook inside it. On the printed mortgage arrears notice paper clipped to the hotel receipt from September 19th. Everything was in place. Ryan thought the moment had passed. He had no idea that the trap had already closed. She told him in January. A Sunday. The children were at Ruth's. Gloria had arranged it 2 weeks in advance. She sat at the kitchen table when Ryan came downstairs at noon. On the table, printed and paper-clipped with the precision of a professional who knew how to prepare for a difficult meeting. The hotel receipt. The mortgage arrears notice. A letter from her lawyer. The orange notebook. Ryan saw the table before he saw her face. Something changed in his posture immediately, a tightening across his shoulders, the physical adjustment of a man who has walked into a room that holds something he is not prepared for. Sit down, Ryan, Gloria said. He stayed near the counter. His coffee mug was in his hand. Steam rose from it in the cold morning light. I am fine here, he said. All right, she said. I am going to tell you some things. I would like to finish before you respond. She opened the notebook. She did not read from it. She knew every word by heart. For 8 months, Gloria said, I managed this household, the children's schedule, your professional calendar, and the appearance of a stable marriage, largely alone. I documented it. Her voice was level. The voice of a woman who made her decision long before this conversation. Before those 8 months, the pattern was the same. I simply had not started writing it down yet. Ryan said nothing. 3 weeks ago, I found the hotel receipt in your jacket. September 19th. The night you told me you had a work conference. She paused. I recognized the pattern it belonged to. I had been watching that pattern for some time. Gloria, I am not finished. He stopped. I have spoken with a lawyer. I have restructured my personal accounts. I have stopped covering the mortgage shortfall I was absorbing from my savings. The shortfall that exists because your business is not generating what you have been telling people it generates. She held his gaze without blinking. The arrears are documented. The lawyer has everything. We will handle this process fairly and cleanly. The kitchen was very still. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car door closed somewhere on the street. Ryan looked at the table, at the receipt, at the arrears notice, at the letter, at the notebook. You have been planning this, he said. Not accusing. Arriving at something. I have been documenting this, Gloria said. Planning implies I wanted this outcome. I wanted a marriage. I built one. You borrowed it, and assumed it would maintain itself without your contribution. He moved toward the table. He picked up the hotel receipt. He set it back down. Gloria, I can explain. I know you can, she said. You are very good at explaining. You have been explaining Thursdays for 8 months, and I absorbed every explanation because it was easier than naming what I could already see. She looked at him directly. I am not asking for an explanation. I am telling you what comes next. Gloria stood. She picked up the orange notebook. The lawyer has the paperwork. The mortgage provider has been notified. The account I was using to cover your shortfall has been redirected. She smoothed her jacket. One slow, deliberate movement. The children are at Ruth's until 5. There is food in the refrigerator. She walked toward the door. Gloria. His voice had a different quality now. The comfortable arrogance was gone. Something rawer had replaced it. The mortgage, what happens if you stop? She paused in the doorway. She turned back. That, she said quietly, is an excellent question. I would call the bank this afternoon if I were you. Start there. You will want to understand the real numbers, Ryan. Not the ones you have been telling Gerald. She left the kitchen. She went upstairs. She sat on the edge of the bed and picked up her phone. The unsent draft was still there. The message she had typed and deleted on the morning of the October gathering, when the chairs were too heavy and his shirt was ironed on the chair and she was standing in the garage alone. Ryan, the guests arrive in less than an hour. I need help with the chairs from the garage. Gloria looked at it. She pressed delete. Not in anger. Not in ceremony. She deleted it because that message belonged to a woman who had been asking for the smallest possible thing from a man who had not been showing up for the largest ones. She understood that woman. She did not judge her for a single moment. But she was finished being her. She put the phone face down on the bed. The room was quiet. Somewhere below her she heard Ryan's voice, low, tight, urgent, on the phone. The words did not carry clearly through the floor. The tone did. That was the sound of a man discovering, for the first time, what the numbers actually said about the life he thought he was living. The cardboard castle was showing its walls. The consequences did not take long. The mortgage arrears generated a formal notice within 6 weeks. Ryan's business, described at every dinner party as booming, mentioned in the same breath as expansion plans and new partnerships, had a structural gap that Gloria's quiet contributions had been filling for months. Without those contributions, the gap became visible to everyone who had been too comfortably distracted to look at it directly. Gerald heard through a mutual contact. Gerald told Diane. Diane called Gloria in February. Gloria was in her car in the office car park, the engine off, the winter light flat through the windscreen, when her phone rang. She saw the name. She answered. Gloria. Diane's voice had lost its comfortable certainty. The edges of it were uncertain in a way Gloria had never heard before. I have been hearing some things about Ryan's business. Have you? Gloria said. About the mortgage. About the accounts. A pause. Is it true? You would need to speak with Ryan about his business, Diane. I am not the right person for that conversation. A longer pause. Gloria. Diane's voice was quieter now. Something in it had shifted from its usual position. When you said what you said at Christmas dinner, I do considerably more than manage. You already knew everything at that point, didn't you? I'd been writing everything down for some time, Gloria said. The line was quiet. I owe you, Diane started. You do not owe me anything, Gloria said. And she meant it, not generously, not graciously, but accurately. What Diane owed her was not a debt she intended to collect. What she needed from Diane was precisely nothing. Have a good evening, Diane. She ended the call. She sat in the car park for a moment. She thought about the Christmas table, the smirk into the wine glass. The years of Ryan has always needed a lot of room, Gloria. It is simply his nature, delivered so consistently from such an early point that Gloria had stopped recognizing it as a frame and had started living inside it as though it were fact. She felt no satisfaction about Diane's discomfort. She felt something quieter and more complete than satisfaction. She felt done. The mediation appointment was in April. Gloria dressed with care that morning. She wore the cream-colored jacket she had bought for herself in January from a shop she had always passed and never entered. She wore it with dark trousers and shoes that clicked on the pavement with a clean, confident sound. She carried her work bag. The orange notebook was inside it. Ruth drove her. The mediator's office was on the 3rd floor of a building in the city center. Clean lines. Neutral colors. The smell of fresh air and warm paper. Ryan was already there when Gloria arrived. He looked like a man who had spent 2 months learning things about the infrastructure of his own life that he had never thought to examine before. The confidence that had carried him through every room Gloria had watched him enter was quieter now. The process moved in orderly sequence. The jointly owned home would be sold. The proceeds split equally. Gloria had already identified a smaller house in a good school area, close to Ruth, with a garden where Noah could run and Dora could read in the late afternoon light. Ryan would have the children on alternating weekends and every Wednesday afternoon, collected from school. The school fees, currently managed through the joint account, would continue through a structured arrangement the lawyer had prepared. Everything was documented. Everything was in order. Gloria signed her name in her clear, careful handwriting on the final page. Ryan signed his. The mediator thanked them both. Gloria picked up her bag. She walked out. Ruth was leaning against the car when Gloria came through the door into the April morning. She looked at Gloria's face and nodded once, the small, deliberate nod of a woman who has been waiting for exactly this. "Done," Ruth said. "Done," Gloria said. She got into the passenger seat. The door closed. The car smelled faintly of Ruth's familiar perfume, something warm and steady that Gloria had known since childhood. Ruth started the engine but did not pull out immediately. She sat for a moment with both hands resting on the wheel. "Your mother would have been proud of you," she said. Gloria looked at the trees along the road. New leaves, the particular pale green of early April, so fresh that the morning light came straight through them and turned them almost gold at the edges. "I was afraid for such a long time," she said. "I know," Ruth said. "But the thing I was most afraid of, the chaos, the children suffering, everything falling apart, it did not arrive the way I imagined it would." Gloria watched the leaves. The chaos was already there. I was simply the thing standing between it and everyone's ability to see it. Ruth was quiet for a moment. "What are you going to teach them?" she asked. "Dora and Noah." Gloria thought about Noah pointing at his painting. About Dora in the hallway calling Daddy in the small, urgent voice that went unanswered. About two children who had been watching, all along, the way children always watch. "That stability is not the same as silence," Gloria said. "That holding a family together and holding yourself together are not the same job. And that the person doing the work is not less important just because nobody noticed it." Ruth nodded. She pulled out into the April street. They drove past the bakery that had occupied the same corner for 30 years. Past the school where Noah's painting of a house with 4 windows was still on the display board in the corner of his classroom. Past the traffic light where Gloria had sat on a September evening with her sleeping son in the back seat and given herself 60 seconds to feel it before the light changed, and she drove home and made dinner and said nothing. "I want to be at the school gate early," Gloria said. "We have time," Ruth said. Gloria looked out at the small new leaves catching the April light. She thought about the orange notebook in her bag. At some point she would transfer its contents to the legal file where they properly belonged. And then she would put the notebook itself somewhere considered, not in the back of a drawer, not thrown away. It had done important work. It deserved a considered resting place. She thought about the text message she had deleted on a Sunday morning in January. The one she had written and rewritten and swallowed and finally, permanently erased. She thought about Ryan at the Christmas table. The cold laugh. The 2 words dropped into a room full of people. "She manages. I do considerably more than manage." 1 sentence. That was all it had taken to begin. The light ahead turned green. Ruth drove forward. Gloria had been the foundation of something that did not deserve her. She had carried it with both hands for years. The mortgage, the school runs, the dinners, the smiles practiced in hallway mirrors, the records kept in careful handwriting in a small orange notebook. She had carried it all. And when she set it down, the whole thing showed exactly what it had always been underneath. A house of cards, built on her silence, maintained by her fear, standing only because she had not yet decided to walk away. Gloria was 34 years old. She had a signed agreement in her bag and a savings account in her name and 2 children to collect from school at 3 o'clock. She had a new house that was the right size for the life she was actually living. She had finally herself. And a woman who knows what she is worth does not need a single person to confirm it for her. She already knows.